In this video, I'm checking that what is going to happen if an invasion happens between, Russia, a war happens between Russia and Ukraine, and what are the assets that go up, what are the assets that go down and slide, and what should be our strategy in these days. To give you a heads up, the last time that Russia invaded Ukraine was 22 February 2014. To have a comprehensive analysis, I used 5 different categories: safe havens, like the Swiss franc, like the gold, Bitcoin. These are one of the categories. The second category is the grain and wheat, because Russia is one of the biggest exporters of grain and wheat. Gas and oil, everybody knows why. Company exposures, especially in Europe and in United States, and bond and securities. I want to check exactly to know what is going to happen to these stocks, to these assets. As you see here, the first study that I'm going to have is in EuroCHF. You see that the trend was practically fluctuating. The euro was appreciating versus CHF. But at the time of the start of the time of the protests in 2014 in Ukraine, and after that invasion of Russia in late, February, the value of euro become less compared to CHF. Everybody was trying to buy CHF because it's known to be in fact, a safe haven. Another thing that is safe haven is gold. Let's check that what is happening to gold. Gold price increased exactly like CHF, that its value increased. And as you see here in February, we had a huge plunge of gold. So we believe at that time from 1,250 per ounce, it became 1,383. So we believe that the same will happen. Oil price will increase in that case. So these were the case of in fact, the safe havens and Russia's war effect on safe haven. The other safe haven at that time, that I'm not sure if it was a safe haven or not, but another thing that was that I studied is XBT, or Bitcoin, versus US dollar. In 22 February, here is around 24 February, you see a jump in the price of Bitcoin. At that time, the price of Bitcoin was something like 450, and it suddenly jumped and increased to something like 680, and the value is so high. It is something like 100, 230. It is something like 50% increase in the price of Bitcoin. So that could be another, potential evidence that we can see in case of the war between Russia and Ukraine. Let's go to the second category. The second category that we talked about was the grains like wheat, and wheat is the most important one. This may be one of the most interesting curves. If you see here, wheat price was reducing till February. With the start of, practically problems in Ukraine, the wheat price increased, and the increase, happened since 27th of February 2014 up to 3 months till May of 2014. The wheat price was increasing. I cannot say, and I'm not sure if the whole period is related to Russia's, effect, Russia's invasion to Ukraine, or there were other parameters that are influential. But for sure, Russia invasion was an important parameter and increase in the price of the wheat. Let's go to next category, oil and gas. The gas reaction was a little bit, different. With the fluctuation, with the start of, invasion, uh, it the price became more and more and more, and after a period of time, it became less. I have to go and check exactly that what happened and what was the main news that led to the decrease, a sudden decrease on the price of gas after the invasion. But before the invasion, the price was going up. After the invasion, the price gets down. It's a little bit weird. Making a research on the news, it seems that at that time, shale gas was one of the main sources that could easily compensate the oils or the gas market. And on the other side, in a short period of time, Gazprom, the Russian, gas production company, informed that 75% of gas exported to Europe are linked to oil prices, and they mentioned that nothing will change because of the tensions in the region, and they will continue performing their commitments. WTI, or West Texas Intermediate oil, had a different story. The price was reducing before February. In February, it increased. After the settle down of Russia and Ukraine, it decreased, and again the price increased. So it seems that it had a positive effect on the price of the oil. The invasion has had a positive effect on the price of the oil and that era. Recently, Reuters published a news about exactly the sectors that are under exposure in case of an invasion between Russia and Ukraine. Let's go and check it. It believes that there are a lot of companies like BP, which owns 19.75% of a stake in Rosneft, are having some kind of problems and will face some problems. Shell RDS holds 27.5% in Russia's first LNG plant in Sakhalin-2. The company energy firm Exxon operates through a subsidiary in Sakhalin Oil One gas project. And if there is a case of, in fact, if there is a decision for making any kind of imposing any kind of sanctions on Russia, these companies are the ones who are going to lose profits. On the other side, the banks like Raiffeisen Bank, which majority of their revenue comes from Russia, or the companies like Renault, these are the companies that will face big problems in the country, in Europe, in fact. Another interesting story is about SPY, SP 500, in fact, or the ETF, which is duplicating SP 500. And the story is that at the time of, the crisis in Russia and Ukraine, SPY, which showing the average of the biggest companies in United States, performance of them, had an uprise, and the price in general was increasing. It means that the invasion of Russia to Ukraine seems to be something positive for the U.S. market. Maybe because at that time there would be for sure a huge problem for the European markets and European companies. And maybe at that time, the investors, in addition to the safe havens, want to focus on investing on value companies instead of growth companies, and they try to make more focus on investing in companies which are having a proved background, like Apple, like Facebook, and so on and so on. To check that, let's me go and check one point else. Next part of this study is more interesting. If you check, I tried to have a study and have an overview of the reaction of the main big companies, blue chip companies of United States stocks in this period. And it seems that the company like Google, the red one, had an increase in the price. Apple had some kind of increasing trend, while in the previous month it was absolutely reducing in the previous 2 months. We see that in February it has an increase compared to late January. Microsoft, you see the green line, it had an increase in the price. Amazon, it had practically a sideways movement, but it had an increase, late January compared to late February. there was an increase in the price and SPY was increasing. So one of the other fields, one of the other practically type of assets that will increase maybe blue chip companies in the United States that many of investors, because of the high risk, try to leave the growth stocks and focus on the value stocks. So this will be practically one of the other points that we can have.